Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari. Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari. Prabhupada. Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Girdhari Radha Girdhari Radhe. Jaya Radha Girdhari Radha Girdhari Radhe. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ke Jayam Vishpad Paramahamsa Prabhujakacharya Sotar Sata Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ke ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ke Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam ke Ekadashi Vrata ke Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ke Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Before I begin, I'd like to thank Vijay Prabhu for giving up a day. That was a sacrifice. I know how nectarian the service is. Thank you. Well, that leads me to the next request. When we get to the prayers to Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas, to the divine lordships, please think of me in terms of becoming an instrument for the message being repeated as it is. And being my friends, if I fall short in that manner, please correct me and point out my deficiencies. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're getting to hear from Srimadbhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 25, the characteristics of King Puranjan, text number 26. Katam Kanja Palakshakshi Kayasi Hakutasiti Imamupa Parimbiru Kim Chakirshasi Samsame Katam Kanja Palakshakshi Kashyasta Kuta Sati Kashyasta Kuta Sati Imam Upaparimbiru Kim Chakir Shasi Samsame Dravida Katam Kanja Palasakshi Kashyasi Hakutasati Imam Upaparimbiru Kim Shakir Shasi Samshame. Ka, who, tvam, you, Kanjapalasha, like the petals of the lotus, Akshi, eyes, Kasha, whose, Asi, you are, Iha, here, Kuta, where from, Sati, O chaste one, Imam, this, Upa, near, Parim, city, Biru, O timid one, Kim, what? Chakir Shasi, you're trying to do. Samsa, kindly explain. Me, unto me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. My dear lotus-eyed. He's not speaking to Krishna. He's speaking to the beautiful woman in the forest. Oh, my dear lotus-eyed, kindly explain to me where you're coming from. Who are you? And whose daughter you are? You appear very chaste. What's the purpose of your coming here? What are you trying to do? Please explain all these things to me. Purport. The first aphorism in the Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jigyasa. In the human form of life, one should put many questions to himself and to his intelligence. In the various forms of life lower than human life, the intelligence does not go beyond the range of life's primary necessities, namely eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Dogs, cats, and tigers are always busy trying to find something to eat or a place to sleep, trying to defend and have sexual intercourse successfully. In the human form of life, however, one should be intelligent enough to ask what he is. Why is he come into the world? What his duty is? Who is the supreme controller? What's the difference between dull matter and the living entity, etc.? There are so many questions, and the person who is actually intelligent should simply inquire about the supreme source of everything, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. A living entity is always connected with a certain amount of intelligence, but in the human form of life, the living entity must inquire about his spiritual identity. This is real human intelligence. It is said that one who is simply conscious of the body is no better than an animal, even though he be in the human form. In Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sri Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham ridi sanivishto matatsmritya jnanam apohanam cha. I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. End quote. In the animal form, the living entity is completely forgetful of his relationship with God. This is called apohanam, or forgetfulness. In the human form of life, however, consciousness is more greatly developed, and consequently, the human being has a chance to understand his relationship with God. In the human form, one should utilize his intelligence by asking all these questions. Just as Paranjan, the living entity, is asking the unknown girl where she has come from, what her business is, why she's present, etc. These are the inquiries about Atma Tattva, self-realization. The conclusion is that unless the living entity is inquisitive about self-realization, he's nothing but an animal. If we could pray together. Om Jnana Timirandasya Ginanjana Salakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karana Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakopatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lotus-eyed, kindly explain to me where you're coming from. Who are you? And whose daughter you are? You appear very chaste. What's the purpose of your coming here? What are you trying to do? Please explain all these things to me. So we're so fortunate that we get to hear from Srila Prabhupada, a lover of Krishna. He talks about Atma Tattva in this purport and the necessity of inquiring about it. Who are we? What is our duty in life? Why have we come here? Why are we suffering, etc.? If we didn't have the pure devotee commenting on these kind of verses, it'd probably just flow right along with this guy is really falling head over heels. What are you doing here? Well, I think the question was answered by your activities in the last verse. Paranjan, the hero, became attracted by the eyebrows and smiling face of the very beautiful girl and was immediately pierced by the arrows of her lusty desires. When she smiled shyly, she looked very beautiful to Paranjan, who, although a hero, could not refrain from addressing her. So, she represents the intelligence, and Srila Prabhupada is taking it right to the spiritual platform with today's verse. I couldn't help but think of Sanatana Goswami's questions when hearing this verse and purport. The little bit of Leela, he finally reaches Lord Chaitanya, meets again with him, first time having been in Ramakeli, and now he's escaped from prison and he's traveled halfway across India on foot. He's come to, Benares, Prayag, right around that area. Benares, it was Benares. And he's met Lord Chaitanya again. And he had the bright blanket, beautiful blanket that his brother-in-law had given him to keep him warm. It was a first-class blanket. And yet he, hadn't shaved, he hadn't cut his hair. He'd simply traveled in as quickly as he could, hoping that he would meet Lord Chaitanya. And his desire was fulfilled. And when the Lord saw him, he was happy to see him, but he gave him a look in a way in which Sanatana realized he didn't really appreciate the fancy threads, the blanket he had. So what did he do when he realized, I haven't pleased my Lord? He went to the riverbank to take bath, and he found a sadhu there who had a very tattered, old blanket. And he asked him, would you please trade your blanket for mine? And the sadhu thought he was putting him on. What are you talking about? That's really a nice blanket. He said, no, please, I insist. Would you please accept this and let me use yours? He did, and when Lord Chaitanya saw Sanatana Goswami the next time with that tattered blanket, he was very appreciative. It was as if Sanatana Goswami had given up the last of his nice things in life. Now it was just him and his relationship with the Lord. And it's so nice, we think about who am I? Why do the threefold miseries always give me trouble? If I don't know this, how can I be benefited? But it's nice to remember the preface to those questions where he says, I don't know what's beneficial for me or what's detrimental. That's certainly pertinent today. People don't have a clue what's right or wrong or, they're so easily misguided. And he says, nonetheless, in ordinary dealings, people consider me a learned scholar. And this is what caught my eye. And I'm also thinking of myself as such. Now, when you're talking about trying to understand who you are as spirit soul, distinct from the body and the mind, let's emphasize the subtle body at this point, the mind, then you have to give up false pride. You have to. There's no question of becoming self-realized, realizing your identity is the eternal part and parcel of Krishna, if you are proud. We have the verse from the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha dhyatma nitya vinivritti kama dandvar vimukta sukha dukkha samgya kachanti amudha padam aviyatat. Yoga of the Supreme Person, 15:5. So in this verse, Krishna is giving qualifications for how to get back home, back to Godhead. And the first thing he says is those who are free from false prestige. And Prabhupada in the purport says this surrendering process is so nicely described here. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride. Now, why would one be proud? Because we think we're this body. We think we're the capable person that you see before you, speaking so eloquently on Srimadbhagavatam. Or we're handsome, or one may have riches. One may be on the other side of the, scales. One might be considered to be very renounced or knowledgeable, etc. So many qualities and opulences that Krishna possesses, and we being part and parcel of the Lord, we have those same qualities. But right now, they are covered with tons of dirt. The consciousness, the misidentification that we have attached to this body and mind. That's the first weakness of heart, to think that I'm this body. The second weakness of heart is when automatically if you think you're the body, then what happens? You become very attached to the possessions. Am I right? How many of you had the experience of losing your smartphone or thinking that you lost it? Did you panic? I certainly did. I was in Mayapur. I was on Parikrama. I was at Vidyanagara. And I had gone for the darshan in the back. You know, the beautiful Radha Krishna in the back. And had come back, and then the devotees had all caught up with me, the sea of devotees, and where's my smartphone? It had all my nectar on there, and, this is all mine. This is all my information. Oh my God, I had a panic attack. What do devotees do when they have panic attacks? When they're... See, Narita has some intelligence, but I started praying. I prayed, my Lord, please, if it's your desire, can I have my phone back? And I asked the devotees, can you look about? Has anybody seen that phone? And they didn't, and Krishna really stretched it out for me. Okay, I had to settle down. I got to speak on some glories there. The island there embodies puja, deity worship. And it was a wonderful sangha, wonderful experience, some seva rendered, and the association of so many wonderful devotees. And then when everybody gets up and goes, and I've resolved that, well, Krishna gives and Krishna takes away. And then everybody leaves, and right there on the kirtan mandap floor, there's that little phone. Thank you, Krishna. Krishna doesn't care what we have. He wants us to realize who's given it to us. He gives us all our borrowed plumes. Everything that we're proud of, it's simply borrowed assets given to us by Krishna. We eternally have qualities, abilities. The potential of the self-realized soul is unlimited in the service of the Lord. But when it's covered by our misidentification and illusion with this mind and body, you might get some tiny fraction of something when you really focus, as it was being described yesterday. Determination, austerity, serious endeavor, those are necessary for getting ahead of the pack in mundane life. What to speak of spiritual life? Dhrita vrataha. We have to be so serious if we want to take advantage of the treasure that's being offered to us. First of all is realizing who we are. Being a little bit older now as time goes on, I shared with our table when I came back, I shared with somebody when, I can't even remember that, see? Illustrating my point. When I came back from India, little things were disappearing from my memory. Like I went to put gas in the car, and I just pulled the thing out and stuck it in, and I hadn't paid. You got to put your money down. They don't let you take any gas. And I said, kind of clicked after. You have to pay first, right? And he goes, yeah, what state are you from? So, things slip out of mind. That's a poem that Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the purport. That ignorance is arranged by the Lord of the heart through the agency of material nature. If you have intelligence and you don't use it, you lose it. Human form of life is for nothing but realizing who we are, being the eternal servant of Krishna, engaging in activities in that relationship, so sambandha, then abhideya, devotional service, and then the goal, praying earnestly. We should be seriously focused on, quickly achieving the desired success. Yeah, Krishna praying. In the purports to some of the verses of this section of Lord Chaitanya teaching, Sanatana Goswami says the three greatest treasures of the living entity are Krishna, his devotional service, and love for Krishna. Yeah. And the way we awaken to these things is atato Brahma jigyasa. Now, Brahma can be defined in several ways, depending how you want to take it. Of course, it means inquiry into the Supreme, Krishna, the Absolute Truth. It means self-inquiry for self-realization, the jiva. We should say, what is it? You got jiva bhuta and you got jivan. What's the name for the jiva when he's awakened to his awareness of himself? What do you call it? Jivan Mukta fits. It's a wonderful verse. But anyway, we don't want to be jiva, bandha. We don't want to be bound in illusion. We want to become free in devotional service. So it can mean that, and it also means the Vedic scriptures. Srila Prabhupada, the purport says this, atato Brahma jigyasa. We should be studying these scriptures. We should be hearing them from the proper authority. That's so important. Without receiving this knowledge in disciplic succession from someone who is representing the Lord properly and not simply speaking but living the teachings, that person is qualified to become empowered by the Lord, by the spiritual master. And it behooves us to seek the association of such exalted souls and give our life to this earnest endeavor of, first of all, understanding who in the heck are we. Now we hear it the first step we walk into the door. You're not your body. If Dhammaraj was here, I could say, stand up, Dhammaraj, turn around. Look at his left calf. He's got it tattooed right there. I'm not this body. So the words roll off the lips so very easily, don't they? But realizing it is another thing. Because really, on our own credit, due to our own merit, we don't get to render devotional service until we cross that line of realizing who we are. Now, I have to preface that with, we're so fortunate Krishna accepts our faulty, fallen, Srila Prabhupada said, rotten activities of service. Please accept it, my dear Lord. And he does when we offer it in service to his devotees and to the spiritual master. They can offer to Krishna, and we get the benefit. We are engaged in transcendental devotional service. But realization of that, if we had realization, I tell you, everybody'd be sitting here, listening attentively. There'd be a lot more people here, living in the ashram, because we're that preaching, that realization, and that excitement of self-realization. I mean, it changes the paradigm of everything. You don't think, oh, I like him, I don't like him. Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochitina kankshati. I've gone, that's not, sama sarveshu bhuteshu. You don't think like that. I'm spirit soul, you're spirit soul. Heck, the dang fly that gets in here by mistake, no one likes to see him. He's spirit soul. Krishna loves all his living entities, parts and parcels. We can't imagine, as Jiva Goswami was quoted this morning, the inconceivableness of Krishna. When you say unlimited, he possesses unlimited love, how do you quantify that? We're so tiny and so insignificant. And as Prabhupada prayed to Rukmini Dwarkadish on their installation, the smaller deities, I'm so rotten. How do you explain that except for causeless mercy? It is his nature. He wants us so badly to realize that we don't belong in this world. All the distractions, and there are millions and trillions of them in human society and all the other species. Basically, you can boil them down to the 4 animalistic propensities. Practically speaking, it doesn't matter what species you talk about. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. What a loss. I mean, tragic loss. When we come to the human form of life and we don't take advantage of that which is being offered. And here we are sitting in the Sangha of devotees, sitting at the feet of Srila Prabhupada and their lordships, and sometimes we sleepwalk through this precious opportunity that we have. Please, Tulsi Devi, we pray, please give me the privilege of devotional service. You think this is something cheap? You think anybody can just come to the platform of rendering service to the Lord? No, out of millions of people, one may be interested in self-realization. Out of millions of them, who really achieves the goal and knows Krishna? So very rare. If you don't get the mercy of the Lord and his devotees, not a chance. Impossible. Dharateya. And so the Lord wants so badly for us to take advantage of this process, to be alive, to be awake, to be enlivened. When we go to, before going to bed, saying our obeisances to our spiritual master, we should stop and think, how did the day go? Did I measure up? And think about when we fell short. If we're honest with ourselves and we've heard properly, we can understand when we fell short. And when we wake up, say our obeisances, we should also take some time to meditate on this basic ABC of Krishna consciousness. Buddhi Shuddha or Chitta Shuddha, it's a part of deity worship. It should be a part of everyone's day, right in the very beginning. Because, as I say, Atma Tattva, self-realization, it's not easily realized. You got to want it. You got to pay a price. It's not cheap. But part of developing the desire is hearing about it and constantly reminding ourselves every day. Heck, as many times throughout the day as you can. Here are some prayers from Hari Bhakti Vilas, for example. I'm an eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, I'm his eternal servant. I aspire for his mercy at every moment. From Jivadharma, who am I? I'm his. Lord Chaitanya speaks, Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm a pure spirit soul. Y'all know the Sanskrit for that one. I'm not a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, or Sannyasi. I'm nothing more than a servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. Keep that in mind, that servant of the servant phrase. Here's something that another prayer that I read every morning. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, the awakened soul says in effect to the mind and body, I'm not identical with you. I do not want what you require. I so long believed I was identical with yourselves, the mind and body, and that our interests were the same. But I now find that I'm really and categorically different from you. I'm made wholly of the principle of self-consciousness, while both of you are made of dead matter. This is Sambandha Gyan. This is Atma Tattva. We aren't this thing. I'm going to stop for just a short tangent. You know, when I joined in the temple, you know how big our mirrors were? Those who were brought up in Indian culture, to put on your tilak, you had a mirror like this. A little tiny thing, like Srila Prabhupada had, and you'd look at it. Now, just look out the front door and look at the bodybuilding gym there. I forget what the name is now. Base camp or something. And mirrors everywhere, because you want to see that muscle bulge. You want to see that body building up. That's Maya. And I don't know the scriptural quote, but I accepted it. One of my godbrothers in the 80s, he told me, actually, it's inauspicious to look at mirrors. And just common sense, it makes sense. If when I look in that mirror and I think, that's who I am, that's very inauspicious. But previously, it was like you could see your nose, you could see your T-lock, hey. And sometimes Srila Prabhupada didn't either. And it was always perfect, right? When you're so fully surrendered to the Lord, it is amazing how, as a puppet in the Lord's hands, you can do everything perfectly. It's amazing. That just being a tiny example. So we don't want to identify with this body. It's dead matter. It's dead. As soon as we leave it, it'll just collapse on the floor. And then it starts decomposing, and the nasty elements with which it's made starts to become prominent. Being matter, he continues, you can act and be acted upon by matter under the laws of nature. Nature makes and unmakes you, but she has no power over me. I'm not benefited by your growth or harmed by your decay. You grow and decay by the laws that govern your relationships with this physical universe. Falsely identifying myself with you, I find myself compelled to suffer pain and pleasure due to the physical problems that overtake you. I find myself unnaturally yoked to your functions, such as eating, drinking, producing thought, etc., etc., and am forced to believe them to be my own functions by which I am benefited. Of course, I shall have to stay with you as long as it's intended by providence that I should suffer the consequences of this unnatural alliance with you. But I shall from this time do nothing to please you. I shall permit you to do only what I consider to be necessary for my well-being, regaining my natural position of free conscious existence, unhampered by an unnatural domination caused by longing for material enjoyment. I refuse to be any more a slave of the sensual inclinations of the mind and body. Or as you were reading Prabhupada's words yesterday, we want to become a Goswami, a hero, a controller of the senses, not Maya Das, Krishna Das. That's what we want. And you can't do it just by gritting your teeth, cinching up the belt. It's not like that. It's by positive engagement. Srila Prabhupada has a purport. It's a really nice one-liner. Renunciation doesn't mean the denial of desire. You can't extinguish desire. It's who we are eternally. Conscious, desiring, seeking relationship, love for Krishna. That's who we are. So what is renunciation? It's engaging our desires for pleasing the Lord and His devotees. It's a positive activity. And when you become excited, when you say these prayers daily and you become excited, I get to go to Mongol Artik. I tell you, there are devotees who for months have not been able to come to Mongol Artik or come to greeting the deities, or I suppose even like Sunday feast. They feel the separation. I don't mind saying to you, Radha Giridhari feels the separation from them. It's their arrangement, and as long as it is there, of course, how does he say it? I'll have to endure this as long as it's intended by providence. But we should be eager to engage in Krishna's service, not begrudgingly perform it. This is the ticket. In the beginning, one develops a taste, some realization that the service is everything. And we're not just talking about mental. That's there. But, the processes have been given to us by the previous acharyas and by Srila Prabhupada. Like today's Ekadashi. It's Aja Ekadashi, Annada Ekadashi. Just by hearing about this Ekadashi, you can become free of all sins. A king, due to some past misdeeds, he lost his wife and his son. He lost his kingdom. He was reduced to the position of being a gatekeeper at a crematorium and subsisting on taking the clothes off the dead corpses to, somehow or other barter or maintain himself. And one time Gautama Muni came by, and he, knew that a sadhu can give me the answer. Why am I suffering? What do I do? What's my duty to get out of this miserable condition? And the sadhu, Gautama Muni, was very kind upon him when he was, offered respect and praised, and the king, Harishchandra, inquired submissively. He said, just so happens in about a week, here comes Ekadashi. And he described that anyone who will follow this Ekadashi, all sins are destroyed. So the ex-king, the fallen king, the sinful living entity, took advantage of those instructions. He did the Ekadashi, and even though he became free of his slavery, to his service, to indentured service to the master they had, not only that, but he regained his kingdom, and his wife and son, who had even passed away, came back to life, and he was rejoined with them. How's that for the potency of an Ekadashi vrat? One day, staying up, fasting, and glorifying the Lord. Krishna is making it as easy as he can, and Ekadashis are one of the determined activities of Krishna consciousness. Comes twice a month. It's like a special, loophole. Hey, you want to get in the fast lane? You hate being stuck in traffic with everybody else? You want to make some rapid advancement? Take advantage of it. And that's just one example. Everything we do, we have the opportunity to take advantage of it enthusiastically. We may not feel enthusiastic because our mind is like, and the funny thing is, actually the reality is, the greatest majority of people are ghostly haunted. I mean, there's so many ghosts in this area of pubs and bars and this and that. It's not like we're impervious to these things. I know I speak from personal experience without spending my time on sharing my story of having been cursed and haunted for some years before the ghosts were busted and exorcised. And the result was night and day. That voice I heard, I thought it was me because I think I'm my mind, and it's like so agitated, so disturbed. So, it's tough enough with just a rascal mind that we've given power of attorney. Hey, see what you like? Senses? What do you got for me today? No, I don't like that. Oh, yeah, let me go for that. It's hard enough being Godas, Mayadas. But then when you got the complications of, hitchhikers, as it were, other living entities are frustrated, not being able to enjoy sense gratification. Well, hey, let me take care of this weak-minded person who's in the mode of ignorance. This is reality. The world is not a place for a gentleman. It's a miserable place. And those who realize that, we can inquire sincerely, we can hear attentively, and we can pray to be given the opportunity, let me be focused in executing what we hear. And like I said, if you're not enthusiastic, then practice being enthusiastic. We're supposed to hear, chant and dance. Take Prashanam, honor Prashanam. You see everything, try to take it to the spiritual platform, emanating the standard that the Mahajans, the self-realized, the advanced devotees set. And when we get the chance to associate with them, jump at it, because that's 90% of the formula right there. Associate with advanced devotees. And when you can't do it personally, then we do what's necessary. We hear from the scripture, we hear on the internet, etc., etc. But when the opportunity comes, know that it's rare, it's precious, and should be fully taken advantage of. Don't take life for granted. Don't take devotional service for granted. So, when one identifies with the body, all misery is attached. When one identifies as the spirit soul, When that misery includes becoming very fearful, and that's such a prominent thing today. I mean, the world is shaking in its boots with an unknown, unseen, unpredictable, horror. And why is that? Well, 11th canto, it's explained, when the living entity is attracted by the material energy, which is separate from Krishna, he's overpowered by fear. Because he's separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the material energy, his conception of life is reversed. In other words, instead of being the eternal servant of Krishna, he becomes Krishna's competitor. This is called viparyayo smriti. To nullify this mistake, one who has actually learned it in advance worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a spiritual master, worshipable deity, and source of life. He thus worships the Lord by the process of unalloyed devotional service. So the Lord appears as the Vedic scriptures. The Lord appears as the sadhu. The Lord appears as Chaitya Guru within our heart. All three just waiting to see a little spark, just a little interest. And then they will do all they can to fully facilitate it. Take us by the hand. Can't force us to drink. They say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. We can remain on the external platform of Krishna consciousness for this life and for many others if we want to come to the point of appreciating that we're the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. We have to practice humility. We have to pray for it, cultivate it. Don't raise your hand, but how many of us consider ourselves lower than everybody else that we're in the company of? That's what Trinada Peace and Nichena means. That's what it means to be prideless. And not expecting you to think I'm something special. But I see your specialness. I know you're a devotee. You're dear to the Lord. You're aspiring. You're in the shower. You're in the hospital. You're doing that which it takes to become free of this burden. And to think oneself lower sounds a little demeaning sometimes, a little rough on the mind or false ego, but think of ourselves as the servants of the devotees. Servant of the servant of the servant. And you don't just think it. The way you understand it and realize it is by practicing. Do practical activity that will please and assist the devotees in their devotional service in so many facets. Materially, spiritually, emotionally, socially, etc., etc. What do you need? If I can step up and provide it and assist, jump at it. Krishna is very pleased. Because once you start cultivating and practicing humility, you start rising in the mode. You start appreciating what we're hearing. The taste develops. Mode of goodness is something to be aspired for. Steadiness in the mode of goodness. That's the diving board to get into the crossing the line of what is it? Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktyam labhate param. Entering through the door of transcendence, because you can't personally on your own merit serve the Supreme Pure unless we ourselves have become pure. And we want to do that. We got the process. We got every opportunity, but you have to cultivate the desire strongly, steadily. If we do that, then it's all good. Have no doubt. It's a optimistic life that we have. We can wrap it all up. Afraid of disease? Nah. Afraid of old age? Nah. Afraid of death? Not even. That's what Atma Tattva includes in Krishna consciousness. When Srila Prabhupada was asked, how does it feel? What is it like to be Krishna conscious? Without missing a beat, he said, fearless. There is no room for fear or lamentation or this desire for the petty, illusory things of this world in Krishna consciousness. Just become guided by the Guru and the Vaishnavas, the injunctions of Scripture, and watch your life become blessed. Watch yourself become transformed. Turn into who you really are, the eternal servant of Krishna. So are there any questions or comments? know I have that effect on people. At least I preach to myself. Any additions? Realizations?
So you're recommending that in your class that devotees should, in the morning, say different prayers to help them, keep the goal in the mind and who they are and all that. So should devotees just pick and choose what inspires them, or what or is there some type of way that devotees could get these particular prayers?
Well, I was fortunate in Mayapur. I went to a seminar put on by Srimati Dasa, a god sister of mine, and she gave out the Survival Manual for the Soul, Part 1. And I've given these to some devotees. I think she has. And, that was like, sheesh, at least 15 years ago, and ever since, every morning I read them. Because it really puts my mind in, a shower is supposed to wash off the mote of ignorance, but you still got your mind. Like, you can just see, we feel when we come into the temple and we're just kind of like, we're not really there. We're somewhere else in the modes, la land. But when you've used your intelligence, your mind, by hearing, just, it takes 5 minutes to recite some prayers that will get you started on the right track, so that you can, become excited about, let me go down and offer the best I can in glorifying the Lord. It's what the pure devotees do, the previous acharyas. So that's what I was given. But, different devotees, gurus, sannyasis, they've also given prayers. There's Shivaram, he has a big, thick book of prayers, and, or just do your own research. I mean, there's a lot to choose from. What are you attracted to? I know it's late, and that's why Dravida forewarned me. Well, I'll be leaving at 35 after. We're not eating breakfast. That's why I'll use that as an excuse. Oh, we do eat breakfast here. I'm sorry. So then, if there's nothing else, is that okay, Balaram? Alex, what do you think? Glad you're here. Bhakti Glenn, and all of you. Yes, Mukunda?
You mentioned that. Well, I'm not sure if that's how you mentioned it, but you said how many of you feel that you're the lowest person in your company? Now, the mind may, or the false ego, whatever, will
theoretically
give some very good, convincing reasons, even reasons why it's best if I don't think I'm the lowest person in my company, because that could lead to trouble. Like the mind could say, oh, well, I should try to avoid even devotees who are in the lower modes, or I should just keep my distance from those who are, or even if they're devotees, they're somewhat bad association in certain regards. Some might say, oh, well, so I need to be somewhat discerning. The mind might say that. Which would keep one from being very appreciative of some devotees, and certainly could certainly keep one from being very humble. So could you say something on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. That's an excellent question. Well, you don't really have to worry, because you're not going to follow the advice. You don't have the adhikar, but I could have said the same thing right in the mirror. But the reason why I take the lamp every day, generally in temples, that's done by the youngest devotee, the bhakta. I heard something. You hear something new all the time if you're sincere. Vijay Prabhu quoted Radhanath Swami saying we should always feel ourselves a bhakta. A bhakta is supposed to do whatever he's told. You're in boot camp, and this is how you scrub away the filth of the heart. Just Become the humble servant of what, and do whatever I'm told. And do it enthusiastically, exactly as I'm told. And cultivate, inspiration to do it on my own, have my own motivation. Like, to hear that Vijay says, how long did the floor go without being swept? 3 months. It's like, come on. There's not so many people watching, so I'll just, give you the loving lash. There's lack of motivation there. I mean, we sing it every day. The third verse, the Gurvastikam, that the spiritual master is engaged in dressing and decorating the Lord, the deities, and engaged in cleaning their temples. And he trains his disciples how to do that. And we should never think we're above washing the toilets or sweeping the floor or what have you. Menial service in the home of the Lord, in the service of the Lord, is glorious. God, it's better than, Bill Gates. He's one of the richest guys on the planet right now. There's a few other, multi-billionaires. They got nothing on the guy, the Prabhu, sweeping the temple. Nothing. So people are fallen. You don't want to intimately associate. But when we are more experienced than others, the point of sharing Krishna consciousness is to help them. That's service mood. Not that I'm better and I can be merciful upon you. Let me sprinkle a little of my mercy dust on you. It's not like that. It's a service mood. It's like I'm senior, basically I can say it, not the most advanced sitting in the room, but I'm senior in etiquette to all of you. But what kind of relationship do I really cultivate? You've been around long enough. I try to cultivate a friendship, isn't it? Is that how you perceive it? Because I want to be your friend, and if you perceive me as my friend, you'll be inclined maybe to listen to what I have to share. Because I do care. But if I don't make the rapport, if I don't let you know I care, it's not just words, then you're not going to listen to me. And even if you do, and I have a mentality that I'm better than you, then what potency is there in the words anyway? So, we're meant to think we're the last in the line, the list of devotees, but we externally follow the duties of Krishna consciousness. You're brahmachari, I'm vanaprast, etc., sannyasi, at home, householders online. Those are just the ways, the duties, like yes, what's your duty? Well, the way we develop our love, the way we cleanse the dirt, is we have to practically show it. Do something to show you that you care and that you want to love the Lord. So we're given duties, whatever ashram we're in. Our varna, but at least definitely the ashram, the spiritual aspect of it. If we do that, we'll come to the mode of goodness. We'll become purified if, and while doing it, simultaneously cultivate that I'm not a brahmachari. First time they called a brahmachari meeting in years at Mayapur, Gauranga Prem Swami called it, and he invited Janani Vas Prabhu to speak to the brahmacharis, lifelong brahmachari. And so he kind of blew him away because he's on the spiritual platform. They say things, see things, hear things differently than I do. So he said, well, I hope this is the last brahmachari meeting that we have, because hopefully in the next life we're all going to be women. And he goes, Gopi Bratu Padakamalor Dasa Dasana Dasa. He was referring to serving the Lord in Madhurya Ras, the priceless gem that Lord Chaitanya came to taste and give away. So we externally follow our duties, but in heart we should be cultivating that I'm not this. I'm not, Now it's so weird to start saying I'm a vanaprastha. It's like, it's kind of weird. I'm wearing the same cloth. I live with the same devotee, But that's the Vedic culture. So I'm trying to shift gears. and take the duties that come with that. And it's all about just hearing, chanting, sharing. It's about sharing. I like that word better than preaching. It's about preaching. Because mamchiyo vibhacharina bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samititaitam brahma bhuyaya kopate. For us, we're not going to become self-realized the way the yogis and the jnanis try. We're going to just do what our gurus instruct us, praying to open up our heart, to melt our heart, to develop taste for this, and by performance of service, devotionally offered service, then it's just a byproduct. You replace the stupid desires for sense gratification with the pleasure of service and association, and before you know it, you're a liberated soul. It's like so wonderful to see, like Vaisheshika. Man, is he one of my heroes. And I've known him for a long, long time. He wasn't always a liberated soul. He used to be a demigod. He was a demigod walking among us. Now he's a liberated soul. Fully empowered. Spread the Sankirtan movement. He shows the way. He's understood the mission and the mood of our spiritual master, our founder Acharya. And by associating with those kind of devotees and following their example and their instructions, their advice, before you know it, the apprentice turns into a, master. That's the process of Krishna consciousness. So we distance ourselves from the sin. But, we should, it's not Nityananda or Srila Prabhupada's mood that, we size somebody up and think, they don't have a chance to Krishna consciousness. What do we know? I mentioned Gopi Parandan the other day to you. When he came, he was totally looked like one of these homeless, mentally deranged bums. They opened the door to him, let him sleep in the porch, the foyer, let him start attending, and look what he turned into. Pure Vaishnav, sharing the cream of Gaudiya Siddhanta with us. I mean, you can't judge the books by the cover. That's bodily consciousness. Those on the spiritual platform, they look at spirit, and they want to fan the spiritual desire of the jiva. That's the example we should be following. Look at the dirt within our own heart. And when you do that, you have a tendency to be much more open, because I need to do something to become purified and elevated. And if we can become an instrument in the hands of the Sankirtan movement, Lord Chaitanya and our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, that's what it is. And so you're more inclined to be, let me extend myself to the person nobody's talking to. Right now you get to coast. You don't have to talk to. Some of you have the inspiration, the motivation. You see new guests, and you talk to them. That's the way it is. Everything here is geared for their pleasure. This is their home, and we're simply being allowed to live here or visit here. And what a pleasure or privilege it is during this time especially. But they want, if we're not going out to them, whenever somebody somehow or other gets through the door, mask on and socially distancing, etc., give them the opportunity to do some service. Hear the glories of the Lord. Take a little prasadam with you, etc. Keep the preaching spirit burning. That's what's going to get us out of this mess. That's when the Lord will say, okay, you paid your dues. They've suffered enough and you paid your dues. Let's set the world on fire. It's a revolution. First with our own consciousness and simultaneously trying to help others come to the same platform. Is that okay? Now I know your stomachs are grumbling. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for your association. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanandi.